Hello again, everybody. It's trash day, and it's another kind of snowy, very cold day here. Since we last spoke, I went on a trip to Knoxville and read some things while there. So as you all know, I got this Didion book, the 1960s and 70s, Run River Slouching Towards Bethlehem, Play It As It Lays, A Book of Common Prayer, The White Album, and a little bit of dust on the kind of textured paper. Graham said the White Album's the place to start, and that's where I started. But first I read this, the first thing I read, it was from Slouching Towards Bethlehem, this piece, Rock of Ages. And I think that when I happened to turn to this piece, I chanced upon what might be the best possible introduction to this big volume. This piece will make you cry, I think, or I bet. But then when I was fully on my Knoxville trip for Christmas, I read the White Album. I enjoyed reading in the note about the text about how this piece came to be like kind of souped up to be when it was put in the book, which pieces, there were just a couple pieces of it that were actually published before the White Album was in the White Album. And then a lot of other stuff was kind of shuffled in, and that's how you get this long piece that we have before us today. Now that I'm in my Paul Muldoon phase, I think that this practice of shuffling in history rhyme by rhyme, kind of preceding rhyme by rhyme, feels kind of Muldoonish. But you're going to love this piece too. It's the one that's got Jim Morrison in it and really good stuff about her house and how her social life with musicians. There's a really good little passage about how musicians are strangely comfortable in rooms that are just full of tangles of chords all over the floor, and I really related to that. It also begins with that sentence that is the title of that big collection that I know a lot of you have. We tell ourselves stories in order to live. I feel like stealing the show over here is the double lamp of solitude and The Old Man Who Does As He Pleases, two of my favorite poem books recently. Also this one, Light Meters by Felicia Lamport. But yeah, that sentence is there. Many people who I showed this book to said, "Oh, it's got the onion skin paper. It's got the onion skin paper. You're going to really like the onion skin paper." And it looks very snowy today. I think like any good poem, this piece is best read with your friends, with your loved ones, and, repeatedly going back and reading it again. I've got a new little desk set up that I could show you more of later that would be a good place to set this up, light a candle, toke a little candle, and look back at this and take down some notes, really learn what's in here. My friends who really love Joan Didion have said, man, sometimes I just feel like she's the best writer ever, and this part gave me that feeling. When she quotes this poem and says, "This verse had on me the effect of a physical chill, so insistently did it seem the kind of ironic detail the reporters would seize upon the morning the bodies were found." So I read this sitting in the easy chair by the window and, turning another chair toward me so that I could use it as an ottoman. And it was very cool. I had a nice kind of intense private experience reading this book. And I'm going to drop that golden ribbon, that kind of bronze ribbon, back down into the crook of the book and close this, because that's all I read from the Didion book on that trip. The big order of business on the trip was that I read Kokoro. I read Kokoro by Natsume Soseki. You can see the creases that I made in the spine. This is a Gateway edition, a Gateway mass market paperback. I've featured it on the channel before. It's shiny. It's got a kind of yellowed spine. It's just crispy and nice enough to be a really good reading experience. You've got high praise on the back of the translation. And then up here, you've got the big word literature, just in case you forgot what it was you were reading. And these are the pages I turned. You can see them. They've got just such a nice, humble look. It looks like just a chonk of wood. C-H-O-N-K, chonk. Kokoro, a novel. And what a novel it is. It's a novel. It's a novel. It's like a very novel-y novel. I love that. Translated from the Japanese with a foreword by Edwin McClellan. Gateway Editions, Chicago. Isn't that such a nice logo for Gateway Editions? I really like Gateway Editions, and I really like Tuttle Press things. I love their little building here. I think this is a wonderful little emblem. It's so novel-y. It's like an explorer's delight. Look at this archaeological site. I've been watching the Indiana Jones movies. Look at how wonderful it is to stumble on this archaeological place where Indiana Jones can go in and peel off the stone lids of all the coffins and have them shatter all over the floor. And in that spirit, yeah, I really like the brevity of the foreword. Oh, you want to see the title page? Sure. Or the copyright page? Sure. 1985 printing of a translation, copyright 1957. I thought that was kind of interesting. I would have clocked this. This seems like, I was thinking of it as being like maybe a little earlier than 1985, maybe like 1980. But it's a 1985 printing. When I talk about how novelly a novel it is, I'm talking about this table of contents. Sensei and I, on page 1. My Parents and I, on page 81. Sensei and His Testament. Now, you love to see a book that's all of a piece, that has 3 nice, luxurious, long, detailed, careful sections, each of which is totally standalone, you know, totally has an integrity all its own, a vibe all its own, to use common modern parlance. When I was taking notes in the book, I used these little Post-its. I have a stack of Post-its that I got in Knoxville as a little treat to myself, a little Christmas gift to myself, because I like office supplies. That's my vice. There are these are the yellow ones from that thing, from that brick. And then here are the other ones. There's orange, green, and pink. I'm in the middle of using pink over here at this table. I'm actually kind of glad that I've been taking a slower pace to make videos, because it actually allows me to come around to talking about Kokoro on camera. Because my initial experience of it was so white hot. It was such a white hot heat that I said, this will be like Pereira Maintains, and it will be this, you know, it will go down in history as one of the novelest novels I've ever read, and one of the most tear-inducing, tear-jerking ones I've ever read, and it will be a special experience that I will cherish personally and never talk about on the channel. However, after some time has passed, I think I can say a thing or two about it. Did I tell you all that I was reunited with the Pereira Maintains one? I have the Declares and Maintains. I have Maintains back, so I have Declares and Maintains. Anyway, yeah, for those of you who don't know, I made a little video that, today's video is really like referring back to 2 of my real like Wikipedia stub type videos that I made in the past. One of which is my little Pereira Maintains video where I say, oh, this just was too intense an experience. I can't talk about this or break it down at all for you. Just, you know, read it if you like perfect, you know, literature, if you like perfect literature. And then the other one is my like Muldoon collection video, where which I'll talk about Muldoon a bit more in a little bit, just because I'm in a phase. Oh, another side note is that when I was in Knoxville, I tried to read a little bit of Savage Art, a biography of Jim Thompson, but I decided that I would not, because there were too many spoilers for novels of his that I want to read next. So I was like, okay, I'm putting that on hold. But I did discover that my copy of this book is signed, or I did rediscover that my copy of this book is signed. I can talk about acquisitions later, but this was one of the Jim Thompson books that, yeah, I didn't want to have spoiled. This is the latest one I've acquired. But yeah, because we've let some time pass, I feel like I can say a thing or two about Kokoro, and that's it. So it has these 3 parts, each of which has its own identity. They each have a different focus, but they all have the same focus. Sensei and I, it records very immediate impressions. It has this immediacy. It feels exciting. It feels like coming to meet somebody that you really admire, you know, really picking somebody out of a crowd. And then just really, really, it made me love the book immediately, because I'm really interested in people who are sad when they shouldn't be. And this book is about having a friend who is sad and shouldn't be. Like, what's behind it, you know? The person should have forgiven themselves for whatever it is that they're beating themselves up about. They should have gotten over whatever heartache, whatever. It's just such a real part of life. You meet people, you're like, you're so cool, why would you ever frown? But they're frowning, and that's something that we should all write about much more. We should all write about the things that our friends are feeling that we have no idea why they would feel that, you know? That's Mystery 101. My Parents and I is like a kind of bridge. It's like a high rope bridge between these two big blocks, Sensei and I and Sensei and His Testament. There are pages of Sensei and His Testament that are wrinkled, because I shed tears on them, and those tears, kind of scrunkled up the pages a little bit. I think a good way to kind of reacquaint myself with things that I love in this book would be to go through and look at those little slips of paper that I stuck in. Let's do that. Here's a little sticky note that I wrote on when I was going back to the start of the book, because I did go right back to the start after finishing the book, just enjoying reading with the knowledge of the character's history. I loved the immediate suspense and mystery of who is the Westerner. Really beautiful. Just one of the really, really masterful touches of the start of this book. What a master of making a novel, I found this in the book while I was reading it. It's my receipt from Powell's Books, Chicago. I bought this on 1/11/2020 for $4. I got it from that section where the mass markets used to be, up toward the front, and you can tell it's one of those ones where it's in the mass market section, but it's a little more expensive because it's a little nicer. It's not like a Signet or something. It's got some class to it, and it's a little bit rarer. So they did $4, which at the time was, that price has a specific Powell's vibe associated with it. Powell's heads will know what I'm talking about. Looking back at this book, I'm struck by, I really liked the way these pages felt. They were so textured. It really felt like that copy of Hotel Lautremont that I have that has all the textured paper on it. Good stuff. I like this heavy paper. As I'm flipping back through the book, I'm seeing scenes where he talks to Sensei's wife, and I think one of the big things that smacked me in the face while I was reading this book was how there would be these shocking revelations of past violence toward from husbands toward their wives. You keep an eye out for that. That's part of the atmosphere of this book, and the atmosphere that I think the toxic aspects of the atmosphere breathed by the characters who get sad in this book. Before I forget this thought, isn't it really nice when books have a key question, something really fundamental, did this character or did not this character exist, or something on that level? Was or was not this story told fiction, fiction invented by that character? Something fundamental like that. When they have a question like that, that's just not answered. That you can answer, it's like a binary, and you can say, yes, that happened, no, it happened, and either way you say it, it's just like another book. It's like you read a different book. So it's like you read two books. You get to discuss both. It's so lovely when people are able to work out situations like that, and Kokoro is totally a situation like that. I just really, anybody who's interested in novel construction should really give this one a look. I had no idea when I read the book, by the way, that it was notorious for any reason. Although now that its notoriety is explained to me, I understand. I get it. I'm going to keep flipping back through here. Here's a scorecard from a very lucky Scrabble game I played. I think this book has aged really well. I think that there are maladies that people suffer for no good reason, but very real maladies that are just as prevalent as ever. And I speak about this from some personal experience, from some small amount of personal experience. One thing I think is obvious that needs to be said is that I think a lot of the things that make me sad are falling down a phone hole and losing time. And I thought it was nice how reading this book about these these sadnesses that crop up was talking about something that it was actually stealing me from. It was talking about the sadness that it was remedying by being the book that isn't the phone hole I fall into, That was kind of convolutedly put, as is typical for this channel. But I thought it was really nice. It really felt like a country apart. It felt like an exotic land to visit this book, not because it was about a place on the other side of the world, but because it was about a kind of attention to detail with emotion that I crave, that you kind of have stolen from you if you're on your phone all the time, you know? It was about, this book was about exotic and kind of tranquil and very mysterious and foreboding emotional lands, you know? Which all of your friends that I know you all love have in them, you know? I know you all love your friends and wonder why they're sad. Why would they ever be sad? They're so good at playing the drums. Why would they ever be discouraged, etc.? They're so hot. Why would they ever, you know, be sad about, I don't know, a girl or something? Walking around, oh yeah, so this is a note about, some of these notes in here are just about little things that happened while I was reading. Oh, more of my hair fell out on this page, yada yada. But the reading experience was very immediate for me, very Pereira maintains. Here's a note where I talk about a kinda incongruous moment of violence, quote unquote. I was mentioning those earlier to you. This is an example. I guess it was on page 118 in the present edition. It strikes me now that I did talk about using sticky notes at the end of a book to make a kind of glossary. I could do that by, like, you know, either sticking these in the back, you know, when I go to read this book next, right? Or you could copy them onto a different page. There are many ways to, like, begin immediately to make your text response to a book. Like, you don't immediately need to just open up a Word document and say, in this essay, I will. You can kind of assemble notes here and there, and then before you know it, you're kind of like working towards the first draft of something that you would submit like as a assignment in school, for instance. I kind of don't want to film anything in the book that is past the break between my parents and I and Sensei and his testament, but it just feels like taking flight. It really feels like taking flight, getting from the end of that second part to the start of the third. I'm really happy to think that in the future I'm going to get to reread this book and experience that flight again. I don't know what it'll inspire me to say or write, but I'm just excited for that moment again. I love that this book contains events like that. You really feel like poetic events are transpiring. I also don't want to give anything away about about exactly what the perspectival shifts are in the book, from whom to whom, and you can probably guess from the table of contents kind of what they're like. But I don't want to say too much, because I really think this is a book that needs to be read carefully and just with love, and it does not need somebody to just indelicately summarize some strand of it as like a plot. It really is a portrait, and it's, you know, it's worth 1,000 words or whatever, and those words should never be strung together by someone making as dashed off a video as I'm making right now. There is still a sense that this was too good and fragile an experience to really kind of break down. And that's an excuse, I know. It's an excuse for my own just stupidity when it comes to talking about books, or my own, you know, lack of insight to offer you. But this was the big event of me reading in Knoxville. When I got to the last pages and tears were being shed, it was I was in the light of the Christmas tree, and it was after my family had gone to bed, and I'm reading now, looking at that tuft of smoke that's coming out of the school that I live near. Just blowing smoke, you know. Anyway, so I set that there. This was a big event. This was the big event. And that's what I'll call this video. I was thinking about calling this video Kokoro, the big event, you know? What's for Dinner by James Schuyler. I also brought this on my trip, and I started reading it and was loving it, and it was just such a vibe shift. I mean, it's just... But I really think I should stick with this, because I think this ventures into territory that I'm going to have a strong emotional connection to, just like I had an emotional connection to some of the territory explored in Kokoro. Everybody knows I'm a Schuyler head. I said I was going to maybe read this next. I began it, and I was loving the first chapter. That's just, what do I say? Maybe I could just find a representative little bit to kind of get you on board with this book immediately. For Ann Dunn, there's Ann Dunn again, who drew the cover of The Morning of the Poem. This was a part that I loved. I don't know where they find the time, Maureen said. Both my boys are in the school orchestra. Patrick plays the oboe while Michael studies trumpet. You must come to the Easter concert. I'm sure it will be lovely. Mr. Marks is a most dedicated teacher. Under the table, Patrick nudged his brother at this allusion to Fruity Marks. Happily married, father of 3, Mr. Marks had a habit of resting his hand on a boy's shoulder while reviewing a score. Just that, like, that tone, the measurement of that tone, oh gosh, you know what I'm talking about. It's just perfectly calibrated. I spent, like, many a moment just appreciating that paragraph. Happily married, father of 3, Mr. Marks had a habit of resting his hand on a boy's shoulder while reviewing a score. It allows you to appreciate the humor of the boy's perspective. It allows you to, like, actually meet Mr. Marks. It's so specific and real. It must have, come from life, or at least come from a writer who pays a lot of attention to how closely connected fantasy and real life are. Really been great, just looking at the first chapter there. But really what I was looking for all the time was more Soseki and more Jim Thompson, because those have been the biggest reading finds recently. And wait, hold on one moment. It's going to be really hard to, like, locate everything I bought, because I kind of already put it on the shelves. Well, I think I've got just about everything here. So here's the roundup of things acquired. A good provider is one who leaves. This was 75 cents at McKay's, and I think there's more than one copy there. Just an exemplary piece of nonfiction that was recommended to me by Amelia, and I really want to read it. Also at McKay's, I finally got Paul Muldoon Poems 1968 to 1998, and this inaugurated the present Muldoon phase I've been having. I have books from after 1998. I have Moist Sand and Gravel, Horse Latitudes, Maggot. I've gotten a download of the end of the poem, Don't Tell Anybody, Don't Tell the IRS. And then I've been checking out of the library books like Howdy Scalp. But this one's been a lot of fun. I got this from McKay's for $5. It has this big kind of sticker patch on the front that I can't get off. I know I have, like, a video where I have a little trick where I use, like, dish soap, but, like, this is really on there. It must have been one of those, like, university stickers where it's at a university library. They have those giant used labels that they put on there, and you peel them off, and there's always a layer remaining. But there's also something kind of attractive to the fact that this specific weird monster cloud with its little ghost face, its little haunter Pokemon face, is now hovering over this bucolic landscape. I think, I wonder what Muldoon would say about it. Probably the most beautiful thing it's possible to improvise to say about it. Got a hair in my mouth. So I got that. Found a copy of The Diary of a Country Priest that was very affordable. It was just $2. I have a copy of this already, but it's extremely brittle, and I don't want to read it, and I've always wanted to read Bernanos, so I finally found a clean, sturdy copy that I will be reading and enjoying. I got An Appalachian Gamekeeper's Soliloquy of Humorous Tales, Selected Game Warden Stories of People and Places of Upper East Tennessee, Volume 1 by R.L. Pete Wyatt. Looks to be self-published. Got the same color as this book that was published by the man whose chess camp I went to as a kid. Dickerson. Where is that book? My last resort. There are alligator farms everywhere. The man, he walks in the alligator pen with a chicken, and he shakes it at the alligator. The alligator grabs and eats the chicken. In a crocodile pen, the man shakes the chicken at the crocodile, he eats the man. Nuff said. Stuff like that in here. I got I found at Half Price Books recently, I found, like, a copy of the latest Paris Review. Oh, I love when the light gets to be like this, where the light is just kind of dimming, it's just deepening. I should get out into it despite the extreme cold. But anyway, what I was saying was, at HPB, I found a copy of the most recent Paris Review. I noticed that a professor from school I went to is now the poetry editor. That's cool. And I looked at the poems a little bit, and they look great. They look great. Good job. Anyway, I've been reading the Murnane interview from that. But this is kind of a cool thing that I found at Half Price Books for $10. This kind of scholarly edition of Mayday, and it contains on the end papers little pictures of what his actual manuscript looked like. But I love making little handmade books, especially for people I'm trying to impress. And this was a little handmade book that William Faulkner, lettered and illustrated by himself to impress a girl. And this has the full text, and it has a really nice long intro. And so I'm really excited to read this again. And as someone who has, for whom Faulkner is very important, I really want to see what my thoughts are about this. I wonder what it'll kick off. I wonder if it'll make me want to make more little tiny fantasies, improv novels, a little, it seems like this book may have been part of why the girl was so exasperated by him. It's like you ask somebody to go out with you, they say no, and then you tell them how shitty that made you feel, but the method you choose for doing that is to couch it in some weird Arthurian romance or something. Anyway, it's just very cool on many levels. It's got all that crinkle coat all over it, but it's like loose crinkle coat. It's not glued in or anything, so you could take off the crinkle coat if you so chose. Wait, I've never seen what it looks like underneath this. Oh, very, very plain. Notre Dame Press. I didn't notice that it was Notre Dame. Cloth-bound book. I'll probably take off the jacket to read it. Or will I? I don't know. But this was a really cool find. It's definitely the kind of thing that I would... it's a perfect afternoon read for somebody like me. And then here's the climax of what... of recent acquisitions. I found a new Jim Thompson book, Heed the Thunder. I doubt that I'm going to like it more than Pop 1280. I dare anybody to show me a Jim Thompson book better than Pop 1280. I should just reread that. But then I found this at Frugal Muse. I found I Am a Cat 3. I have been looking for more Soseki. You'll notice in my Thax Douglas video that I loaned Thax a copy of To the Spring Equinox and Beyond. I would really like to just kind of look at that. And I know that there's lots of other Soseki books that are published in Penguin Classics. And I think I'm going to make a trip to Chicago soon. And so maybe at the Sem Co-op, I'll be able to pick up a Soseki a Penguin Classic from the many that I know that they have on their shelves because they're the best stocked bookstore in the world. But here you've got a Tuttle edition, mass market edition of I Am a Cat Volume 3. The book was originally published in 3 volumes, and then its first 1-volume edition came out in 1911. I think it's cool to just be thrust right into the 3rd volume, where I'm told repeatedly by the jacket copy and introduction that he pokes fun at Zen, which is a concept I know very little about. I've read the first 30 pages and I'm in love with this. That same subtlety that leads Soseki to choose to have that Westerner and the start of Kokoro, that's just perfect touches. They're here, even though this is such a funny book and it's not the same book at all. It still has that same feeling of a gentle and careful hand, a very thoughtful hand. So I was looking in every bookstore for more Soseki, more Thompson, and leave it to Frugal Muse to come through and give me 2 books that I'm so excited to read next. I could say more about Muldoon. A teacher in high school, really liked Maggot, and I got Maggot. I've got other books of his. He really makes you want to try constructing a poem and using more discipline, just actually putting a little bit of work in and like making a poem. And it's this really nice impersonal way of making a poem, but also a personal way of making a poem. Because you end up making personal choices. You end up using your autobiography. You end up using autobiographical detail and such like. But by coming back to rhyme and form and syllabics and things like that, and trilays and what have you, pantoums, sonic coronas, you end up getting outside of yourself and loving the form. I am your slave, now do what I say kind of stuff. And it's really attractive. It's cool to come to Muldoon after Schuyler, and I'd love to read them both all evening, because Schuyler makes it feel like all you kind of need is yourself in a sense, or it's like it's a different attitude toward form. Like maybe form is kind of, I don't know what to say about it. I don't want to make any sweeping statements about Schuyler and Muldoon's respective relationships to form, but, you know, you could just suffice it to say that they take very different approaches to confession. Speaking of confession, I really like the Muldoon poem Cuba, that's in Poems 1968 to 1998. But I don't really want to say too much more about that now. I just want to keep on copying out poems from this poet and enjoying it in an informal way. And in an informal way, I'd like to bid you all good evening and happy reading this evening. All right, bye.